All right, the purpose of this video is going to be to try to explain how to do box fill when they're giving you what is going to be coming from outside the box. The last video I did, the short video I did on box fill, was it basically told you how many of what size wire you have. Now I'm going to show you how to come up with those numbers. All right, we're still going to be using table 314, 16A and B if necessary. But in this case here, the case of this example question I have, and trying to explain what 314.16b, Article 314.16b says, we will not need 314.16a or b, the tables. So if you have to pause at any point in this video, then completely do that, because this is where it gets a little dicey, but I think you guys will be just fine. So for 314.16b, Article 314.16b, it says box fill calculations. And under number 1, it says conductor fill. And this is where, like I said, this is the part where it's a little more challenging. So it states that each conductor that originates outside the box, that's very important. We're not going to count things like pigtails because they do not originate outside the box. So each conductor that originates outside the box and terminates or is spliced within the box shall be counted as one time of whatever wire size that is. And each conductor that passes through the box without a splice or termination shall also be counted one time. So if I pull through what you might hear called in the field as a banjo string, if it's just a very short, you can't make a splice in that wire, you would only count those conductors one time of whatever size conductor they are. The next sentence says each loop or coil of unbroken conductor not less than twice the minimum length required, blah, blah, blah. That's where if you leave yourself a loop long enough to cut it and make splices in it later, you have to count that wire 2 times, whatever the wire size is according to table 314.16b. All right. So if you leave a short, if you just pull it tight, you only count it 1 time each. If you pull yourself a loop large enough to cut and splice later, you have to count each of those conductors twice. Okay, and that is basically what 314.16b1 states. B2, it talks about clamp fill. If you have an internal clamp, all right, so there's not a Romex connector that sits on the outside, but if you have a clamp inside the box, and we talked about this, you do have some of them. There's one coming up on your homework in lesson 5 in Electrical Code Calcs 1. This is for if you have an internal clamp where the screw is inside, you actually make the clamp, the compression of the cable inside the box is where this would count. And it states that it is going to be a single volume allowance, or 1 conductor shall be considered for the largest conductor present in the box. So you will see that in these, some of them say for the largest conductor present inside the box, and where you get to the devices, it'll say for the largest conductor attached to the device. So we have to pay attention to which one of those values that we're looking for. Then we move on to number 3. Support fittings, where 1 or more luminaire studs or hickeys are present in the box. A single volume allowance in accordance with 314.16b shall be made based on the largest conductor present in the box. Device or equipment fill. So this is where if I have a duplex receptacle or a switch, each yoke or strap containing 1 or more devices or equipment, a double volume allowance, which means I have to count it twice. A double volume allowance in accordance with 314.16b shall be made for each yoke or strap based on the largest conductor connected to the device. All right, so if I have number 12s attached to my receptacle, then I've only got to count those number 12s, even if I have number 10s inside the box. But if I have number 10s inside the box, I would have to count number 10s for that cable clamp. Okay, and then the equipment grounding conductor, the green one, Where one or more equipment grounding conductors or equipment bonding jumpers enter a box, I've only got to count all of my grounds one time. Okay? So, with those rules in mind, we are going to come over here to the right-hand side and do our sample question. And with our sample question, we have two number 12s, and this is basically just asking us how many wires we have to count. They're all number 12s, I believe. Two number 12 conductors enter a box and are spliced to two number 12 conductors leaving the box. So I'm going to pull in my neutrals. I'm going to make them gray. And I'm going to pull my hots as reds. So I've got two wires coming in, a hot and neutral, and I got two wires going out. They're spliced together. And a pigtail feeding the receptacle. Oops, there we go. All right, so pigtail feeding the receptacle. A bare equipment grounding conductor is connected to the box. So I bring in my green. So my green's going to come in here. And I've also got a green coming up in here. And it's going to attach to a ground screw inside of here. And it's also going to come over here and hit my receptacle. There are no internal cable clamps, fixture studs, or hickeys. What is the total count of conductors required to be used to determine the total volume allowance? So we have to count our number of conductors. So, according to the code, I have to count this red wire, this white wire, this white wire, this red wire, all as one, because they are going in and making a splice. They're originating outside the box and coming into the box to be spliced. All of my greens only count one time, and by code, I have to count my device as two. So this will be 6 and 7. So how many number 12s? Because they're all number 12s. How many number 12s does this count as? This counts as 7 number 12s. And I have to fill my box according to 7 number 12s. And I can go, because they're all the same wire size, I can go to 314 16A.